United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilman Taylor? Here. Councilman Whalen?
Here.
Councilman Yangstrom?
Here.
Councilman Ballard?
Here.
Councilman Goodrich? Here. Councilman Wright? Here.
Thank you. Roll present. Sunshine Statement, please.
Let the minutes reflect the compliance with public law 1975, chapter 231, Open Public Meetings Act, that notice of this meeting has been provided by notifying the Asbury Park Press, the River Times, and the Star Ledger by filing a notice of the Borough Clerk on January 1, 2018.
Thank you. We've got a number of workshop items tonight. Probably the easiest one is number 3 on the list, the Special Improvement District property list. When the Special Improvement District was enacted and then it was amended and expanded, there were certain issues in terms of identification of various properties that have changed and/or have become not-for-profit or have since that time gone back on the normal list. So we have to change the actual designations by lot number, and I believe that it's been reviewed with the SID. There's been discussions with River Center, and our borough attorney, I believe, has to provide the ordinance to change the ordinance to make additions, deletions, and all changes to that property list. Is that correct, Red? That's correct. Right. So does the council have any questions on that? It's sort of a housekeeping item. Anytime you have an ordinance that includes block numbers that change over 20, 25 years, there are going to be changes. This is what this does. So without any objection, that'll be placed on the council action list for the next meeting, if Greg can get the ordinance done.
Take care of that, Mayor.
All right, thank you. I should note that on the ordinance list for this evening, just for purposes of the public, if they were not interested in anything else, the ordinance 2018-01, which is on for introduction, that is an ordinance establishing the salaries and wages of officials and employees of the Borough of Red Bank, Monmouth County. The Finance Committee and Personnel have, with our attorney and CFO, need to review that ordinance a little bit in greater detail. So I'm going to ask for a motion to table that to the next meeting. So moved. Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor? All right, so that is off the agenda. Then we go to the impound facility, and I guess the chief is speaking about it, or are you, Commissioner?
The chief is going to come up and say a couple words.
Okay. The chief is here. Good evening, chief.
Okay, so real briefly, this request is to rent property from a business in town for the use of an impound facility for us. Has history, and for about 5 years, we're doing a shared service agreement with Tinton Falls where we impounded vehicles and put them in their impound yard at their police department. In exchange, we gave them a small cut of the proceeds from the impound fees and the auction proceeds when we auction off a
I thought
car.
it was a very generous appropriation of the proceeds. You said small
I guess it
amount.
depends on the perspective.
Well, I think that's-
So they unfortunately ended the agreement at the end of 2016 because they ran out of physical space for the cars that were being impounded by our department and their department. We tried to renegotiate a deal, it didn't work out. We tried surrounding towns, nobody had a facility big enough for us. We tried Monmouth County, they didn't have a facility big enough. Since then, we've been basically without an impound yard and making do, and it's been somewhat difficult. We have located a property in Red Bank on Central Avenue that was previously, up until a couple months ago, used by a local towing company for the purpose of storing vehicles that they towed from accident scenes or whatever. The property is now vacated. The owner is willing to rent it to the borough for use as an impound facility. The proceeds from the storage of the vehicles and the auctions would more than cover the rent of the facility, with some funds left over if we use our 5-year average. And it would solve our operational issue of not having any place to put impounded cars right now. We literally stick them anywhere we can find that's owned by the borough, but it's really not a secure facility and it's not the proper way to be doing it. But we can make them do with some help from DPW, but we have to find a more permanent solution, and this seems to be the most reasonable one.
I think it's a logical solution. I know the commissioner has mentioned it, that was in the offing, and we do need the facilities, and frankly, knowing what we receive in terms of the sales, I think your assessment is right. Although we will not be making a lot of money, but however, the cost would be more than outweighed by the sales that we get. So I think we ought to move forward with it, but that would call for an agreement between the property owner and the borough, and we would probably just need a resolution approving the agreement after we discuss what the terms are. Right?
Yes, that'd be great. Potentially as well. The storage fee set by ordinance?
The storage fees are set. Yes, in our
You could
impound.
always raise the storage fees for the cars to cover, or to increase that margin back as well. So maybe perhaps at least add an ordinance if that might be in order. And I can talk to the CFO about numbers. And the chief already provided me with a lot of information already on this issue.
Yeah, so I think we should move forward with it. And any objections from anybody?
No, I think it's a smart move. Like the chief said, we've been working on this since Tim Falls reached out to us over a year ago. And I want to thank Councilman Ziprich and Cliff Keen from the DPW for allowing us to use their facilities and making do while we were trying to figure out a more secure, long-term solution. And I think the chief pointed out operationally this would make the most sense for Red Bank. So I think it's a smart move to move forward, and I'll motion that we I guess move to regular agenda, or are we just going to put it on for the next council meeting? Do we have next council meeting? Okay.
Next council meeting,
All
yeah.
right.
Okay, so we're all on board with it?
The chief, I'll touch base with you on property owner contacts, stuff like that.
Great, thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks, chief.
I'm going to, with the indulgence of council, jump around a little bit because I know there's probably going to be, most of the people want to be heard on one item, which is a workshop item, and instead of cutting them off at that point and then going back to regular meeting, why don't we go from there and then we'll get back to the third workshop item, and I'll ask the council to approve the minutes of December 27th. Motion? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Stay. You weren't here, that's fine.
My part.
January 1st, motion?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are no mayoral appointments reported. Mayor and council committee members. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very quick, our CFO shared the budget calendar with me a few days ago. I just wanted to share it with the public. If you don't mind, we'll start our budget process around the week of February 19th with the Finance Committee review of the proposed budget. Give or take March 14th, the Finance Committee will present the budget to the mayor and the council. The week of March 19th, the Finance Committee will meet to review capital budgeting and ordinances for the capital budget. March 28th, we will introduce the budget at a meeting, and April 25th, we'll have a public hearing on the budget and adoption. That's it.
Thank you. Ed?
Thanks, Mayor. No report, just wanted to remind everybody that next Wednesday is our Department of Public Works Committee meeting at 1 o'clock.
No report.
Thank you. Mark?
Thanks, Mayor. Last night, the Environmental Commission met for the first time in 2018. We elected new leadership as we had our outgoing chairperson resign at the end of last year. We've also changed our meeting format a little bit. We are only going to have one meeting with the Environmental Commission on the second Tuesday of every month. We're going to use the additional meeting time on the fourth Tuesday for our subcommittees, including the Green Team and the Creative Team. So we can be a little more collaborative and hopefully continue some of the efforts that we achieved last year with Sustainable Jersey and some of the new initiatives that were brought to the table. The co-committee will have its first meeting next Thursday evening.
Thank you. Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. No report other than I just want to thank the police and fire for their work during the storm. Obviously, it was freezing out. Weather was obviously horrendous, and their response to any resident complaints, business complaints, was really well attended. So I appreciate police and fire as always. Thanks.
Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, for Parks and Rec, there's a few things upcoming. The Sweetheart Dance for fathers and daughters will be Friday, February 9th at the Senior Center. Registration is also underway for a family ski trip on Saturday, February 10th to Blue Mountain. Please call Parks and Rec Department for any information. If you made a New Year's resolution to get healthy and lose some weight, the Couch Potato 5K class for adults is starting up March 27th with Charlie. That'll take place on Mondays and Wednesdays at Eastside Park at 7 p.m. Also, spring sports registration is underway, so if you need to sign up for anything, call Charlie. Also, with regard to the parking committee, I'm the new chair of the parking committee. We had our first meeting last night. We had a great discussion and brought up some great ideas about how to improve parking. However, the first thing that we do want to do is release an RFQ for a parking consultant to come in and evaluate the downtown business district from the train station to Riverview and provide us with ideas and solutions for our parking problem. We, as the council members, are not parking experts up here, and we need this data in order to make such a big decision for our town moving forward. So we're hopeful to have this RFQ squared away and drafted for the next meeting. We'll be working with River Center, the Police Department, and the Planning Department to get this right. And we've been pushing for this study for a year, and believe that once we have this data and this recommendation from an expert, then we can have a game plan to move forward and fix our parking problems. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that there's been some discussion about the storm, and I just want to not leave out Public Works because they did a Herculean job, all the men and women of Public Works. Public information was excellent during the storm, kept everybody informed, and also the Office of Emergency Management, so everybody came together on this, so thank you all. Okay, and also I don't want people to forget that we do have the Martin Luther King weekend events, both as a community march as well as the event at Oakland Baptist, so that'll be on the Borough website. On communications and petitions, request from Red Bank Environmental Commission to host Earth Day on April 21st. Motion? So moved. Second, all in favor? Request from Monmouth Daycare Center to hold the 9th annual Touch a Truck event at the middle school parking lot on September 22nd. Motion? Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Now, we're going to go back to the workshop item on the puppy mill ordinance. That would be the next item in terms of introduction on ordinances. Just for purposes of the public, the council workshop is just a brief discussion from a public policy standpoint as to whether or not we're going to be moving forward. After that, the reason I moved the agenda around is because then I will introduce the actual ordinance, and that is the consent of the council. And then at that point, even though this is not the public hearing, but certainly there's a lot of interest, we would certainly not mind entertaining comments from members of the public. And, just try to keep your comments brief, to the point, identification of yourself as well as your address or affiliation, and that would be helpful. So in terms of the puppy mill ordinance, this is something that the council and previous councils had talked in a general sense about introduction, and it applies equally to dogs as well as cats, and it would establish a sense of the council in terms of an ordinance that would essentially regulate or prohibit the type of sales, commercial sales of kittens and puppies that are generated from puppy mills or non-501c3 establishments. It would exclude any sale and or distribution of puppies and or dogs and cats that are brought to the facility by any rescue or humane societies. The type of ordinance has been adopted by many municipalities in the state of New Jersey seems to be moving forward as a concerned civic type of regulations that defines the quality and the integrity of a municipality in terms of its humaneness. And also, I should note, Monmouth County adopted a countywide ordinance on the same thing only last year. So, with that in mind, it's only on for introduction, and as the council knows, the introduction is not the adoption. We would have to have a public hearing at which, between time of introduction and time of adoption, the ordinance could be either adopted unchanged, it could be changed in some respects, it could be amended, it could be adopted, or it could be scrapped altogether. So, any ideas or thoughts on the council?
Before we talk, it would be better, Mayor, to hear the comments from the public.
Well, no, but this is for us in terms of workshop, and I'm going to open it up to the public right now. If anybody has any workshop items that they want to talk about.
I guess the only thing I see for this is, I just don't think it's in the right form to introduce. I mean, I'm all in favor of banning any sale from a puppy mill, but obviously given the fact that we do have a puppy store in Red Bank, I think if there's a regulation that Red Bank wants to put in place to verify that any puppy that is sold is from a reputable breeder that is licensed through the state, or however those protocols and procedures were put, I really honestly don't know. But I think to just say we are not allowed to sell any puppies, I just think it is not the right move. I think if we can just focus on no puppy mill, and no puppies allowed to be sold in Red Bank from a puppy mill, and make sure we have the regulations in place to say you're from a reputable breeder, you meet all the procedure that's from the state guidelines, then I think I'd be comfortable passing something along those lines.
Glad you said that, Mike. The mayor just mentioned that the county does have an ordinance already in effect.
Yeah, but it's sort of a feel-good ordinance. In other words, it bans the sale from county facilities and county establishments, but the county doesn't have a retail component of it.
Right.
So it's a public policy statement by the freeholders saying that they do not favor this type of commerce. They would prefer to have people acquire their pets, whether it's cats or dogs, from 501c3 establishments or from the Humane Society or from the ASPCA or any other, because frankly there are hundreds of thousands of dogs and cats that are euthanized every single year in New Jersey because there aren't available people who want to secure those type of companions from a shelter or care facility. So the county's option, the county statement frankly is that it's a feel-good thing, but it has no practical implementation because they really do not have, and they do not license any commercial ventures, either at the courthouse or the county administration building or anything else. But it's a policy statement saying that they don't favor it.
Okay. Could I ask him to pull that down from the county and distribute it to all of us so that we can, at least take that into consideration as we go forward? I mean, we certainly don't want puppy mill animals to be puppy, kitten, whatever the case, sold here to the detriment of the animals' health and well-being.
I just want to piggyback on that. I also don't think we want to unfairly punish proprietors, business proprietors, for something that maybe they're not actually doing. There's a lot of vitriol directed at puppy mills, and rightfully so. Personally, I'm a proud owner of an adopted dog, and love her, treat her like family, and a lot of people feel that way, so I think it's an issue that sometimes creates emotion over reason in our reactions. And I just want to make sure that we're doing it the right way. I don't know that as written, and to Michael's point, it's a little bit, it can be tweaked, and I'd like to see, I believe the council all got an email from another proprietor in the state suggesting that there's state law that we can also look at to tailor our message on this resolution. I think we do want to send a message that Red Bank's not about puppy mills or kittens or anything that are improperly bred inhumanely, but I do want to make sure that we're not also impacting businesses that are doing the right thing. So I just want to make sure we do it the right way.
Okay. All right, so procedurally, I think there has to be a motion to introduce so we can have a discussion. Motion to introduce? Second?
Second.
Wait, I'd rather thought we were not going to introduce it as stands, since it's not ready to be introduced. So
It is ready to be introduced.
But we're saying in its current form that it is banning the sale of puppies.
Like any other ordinance, after you introduce it, you can change it.
Why wouldn't we, I'm just saying, why would we introduce something that we're going to change? Why wouldn't we just have it ready? Why wouldn't we fix it and then introduce it? Why are we introducing something we know we're not going to pass?
That's fine, Michael, but do you have alternate language right now?
No, that's the point of why, all because we don't have the alternate language, it means we should just pass it. I'm just saying, why don't we,
You're not passing it, you're introducing it.
but we know it's not going to stay in its current state, so why wouldn't we just why don't we just put
You're
it in?
assuming that, you're assuming that.
Yeah.
But we're just introducing it now. And it can be tweaked. We can look at, I agree, we can look at other information, but I think we should introduce it. And then we have 2 weeks within which to gather
more.
information or more. But, you know, I feel very strongly about, I think we all do, about puppy. Mark, where did you get your dog from? Was it?
Lagon Rescue?
So it was a rescue?
Yeah,
Yeah. So I really, you know, I think this is something where I don't want Red Bank to be a town that is known to encourage that kind of thing, of puppy mills, of using animals, selling them from puppy mills and that. And they're serious, very serious issues here that I think we're all aware of. So I think we should introduce it, and then we can hear the public comment, because I know there are a lot of people here who want to talk about it, and we'll go from there. You can vote against it if you want for introduction. I mean, that's your,
I think Michael's point is just why introduce the flawed document in the first place?
No,
It's a workshop, we're workshopping it. If we want to change the form and change some language, why, I mean, we can still hear public comment, I don't have a problem with that, honestly, we'd love to hear that. The feedback, I think that will influence and inform our decisions as we change the language, but I think Mike's point is in the present form, it's not something I personally would vote for.
We table matters all the time that we've seen workshop that we want to fix, that we table and we bring it back when it's ready. I don't know why this would be any different. I mean, this shouldn't be.
Okay, there's a motion to introduce and there's a second. So I think procedurally, we have to vote on that motion to introduce. If that fails, you can make a motion to table.
I'm sorry, Mayor, just for my clarification. So once introduced, if it does not pass introduction, will the public have a chance to speak on it?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I'm fine with
I mean, I guess since we have a motion and second, I mean, we're all, I think every single one of us is going to agree on the final, whatever we want to finally adopt, we're all going to agree on it. I just think it's, why are we introducing something that, it's not maybe, but has anything that Ed, Eric, and Mark or I said that has been incorrect. I think we're all on the same page here. I just don't know why we're going to put this forward when we could proactively over the next 2 weeks put it into its final form and then just put it on for, instead of workshop line, to introduction. I mean, I don't see the harm in that when we know we're going to literally introduce it and the next day start and say, well, this isn't correct, so let's go back and it just seems like it would go backwards, that's all.
I think it's incorrect.
Well, because the way I'm reading it, like Greg clarifies that it's saying it's banning the sale of puppies in Red Bank. But I'm just saying, how can you ban the sale of puppies that we currently have in business?
Now you understand that.
And I understand your point, but I think that if we introduce it today, we listen to the public, and then we can tweak the ordinance as the public has told us what their feelings are on it. So I think we introduce it today, we listen to the public, and then we could tweak it for final adoption.
So we've done that all the time.
Yeah.
Also, I'll point out that if there are substantial changes, you will have to reintroduce.
That's my point.
Anyway.
I'm just going to make that point. If it's substantial changes, then we're going to have to reintroduce it anyway, so why are we putting the cart before the horse right now?
Maybe if the public loves it, and when you introduce it, it'll just not be changed at all.
Either way, if there are substantial changes, then we'll just reintroduce another one, so.
Your New Year's resolution must be more of an optimist.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've seen it done dozens of times, and it's really, this is not any different. I mean, it can be introduced, and notwithstanding the procedure, like Michael, but it's all going to end up in the same place. And or now, or later, it's all going to be the same. And if we need more time than 2 weeks, we'll give it another 2 weeks after that. That's not a problem. Yeah. All right, so there's a
So I
motion and a
guess,
second.
I guess going to Greg's point, that there are substantial changes between now and the next the council meeting, thank you. Then we would have to reintroduce. Yeah. So I guess that gives us time to put our thinking caps
I don't think anybody's saying there isn't time to do it. It's why would we introduce something then have to reintroduce it? It's a workshop item, we can still hear the public, and we can then have a more decision. But we have a motion and a second, I guess.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Councilman Taylor?
No.
Councilman Whalen?
No.
Councilman Youngstrom?
Yes.
Councilman Ballard?
Yes.
Councilman Zimbrich?
Yeah.
Councilwoman Gordon?
Yes.
All right, the ordinance is introduced, and as I indicated before, that does not mean it becomes law. It just means that a public policy item, as we've done before, is placed on the table for public policy, governmental action to discuss and to hear from the public here, and those people who are not here, who will be here, I'm sure, and for us to consider comments. It does not move until there is a second reading, and then we'll see where it goes. But the public hearing will be when, Pam?
So is that you want to go January 24th or you want to wait till February?
Let's wait till February.
February
February 14th, is that Valentine's Day?
It is.
Okay.
And Ash Wednesday.
And Ash Wednesday,
Yes.
okay. We want to do it up, yeah, I guess so. All right, what does the council feel? Do you want it at the next meeting or February 14th? 14th. Don't you have a date like that?
I have a thing with all of you.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you cared. All right, the public hearing will be at 6:30 on February 14th. Hold on. Public hearing is not February 14th at 6:30 p.m. Out of courtesy to some people who have engagements and a life, including members of the public, maybe we ought to have an earlier meeting that evening so that they can go out.
It's very difficult for me to get here really early, as you know, because of my commute. Well, Mark, you also commute as well, so how early?
5:30. I'd like to make it earlier.
I know you want to make it earlier, yeah.
I'll get in trouble.
A lot of us are going to be in trouble.
Maybe we should put this on the 28th of this meeting.
All right, let's put it on leap year, February 28th at 6:30 p.m. Public hearing will be February 28th at 6:30 p.m. Okay, now, any members of the public want to be heard on this, and if so, just approach, state your name and your address, or if you're from an organization, the organization's address, and we will be happy to hear from you. We do have a 3-minute limit, though. Okay? Sir?
I don't think this one works.
Hi, I'm Gary Hager. Most of you know me. I own Bark Avenue Puppies. And I would just put something out to the group. Who would like to buy a puppy from a puppy mill? Nobody. Who the hell would? Who would really want to buy a puppy from a puppy mill? Nobody. So it's important to understand a couple of things. One, with the Pet Protection Act that was put in place a couple of years ago, New Jersey basically decided that pet stores could not purchase from hobby breeders, which the mayor so aptly noted would be a great place to buy a dog from. They took that away. Why? Because hobby breeders couldn't be regulated. So what they did was they put in place a requirement that stores have to get puppies through the USDA approved list. Now, what New Jersey basically says to us is that you're not to buy a puppy for resale from a USDA sanctioned breeder that has had more than a few violations. It's a couple of violations over a period of 2 years. Park Avenue Puppies has been in existence in Red Bank for 10 years. My daughter and I bought it about 2.5 years ago with the intent on taking it from where it was, which was really a boutique, a small shop, 12 to 13 puppies in house, sometimes 15 at any one time, and basically be able to take it to an even higher level in regards to cleanliness, following the rules, acquiring puppies from the best of breed breeders that are out there. The truth of the matter is, quite frankly, this comes down to the choice for the consumer. I have a grandson that was bitten by a dog that was rescued. I'm not against rescues. It happens. You don't necessarily know the provenance necessarily, the socialization, the medical records of a rescue, and yet we should rescue dogs. I agree. I've offered to rescues all around to say, send me pictures, I will post them in my shop so people can see the rescues available that are coming into my place of business, and I would be willing to lose a sale over it. What do the rescues say? We're not interested. You're bad. Can't sell puppies. You got to rescue puppies. I had discussed this with a rescue organization in Red Bank about rescues and puppies that were available. In 800 dogs that she basically placed over 2 years, she had 2 dogs that were hypoallergenic. 2. So there's something that you need to go into with this in regards to this ordinance. Number one, I'm in agreement as an owner there shouldn't be dogs bought from puppy mills. On the other hand, there is no pet store that is going to be able to go to a rescue or go to a shelter and say, give me your dogs, I'll resell them. It's quite frankly, it's BS. That's not a law. You might just really dumb it down to a couple of lines and just say, no pet stores. Just say no pet stores. All this rigmarole and all this legal mumbo jumbo about you can't buy from a puppy mill. Right now the law says we can't buy from anybody that is a puppy mill or a substandard breeder. It's that simple. So I would ask you what Michael was saying before is this should definitely be reconsidered. This should certainly be discussed. It should be heard from both sides. But there's been a fair amount of misinformation that's been floating around. You know, Mayor, you did mention, I caught this, you said there was 100,000 dogs euthanized in New Jersey. That's not even in the realm of what's going on. So, and there are some people and people that will speak here tonight that will verify specific numbers of what exactly is going on. And I really would encourage you to listen and do a little of your own research and poking around to find out. But I would just say that since we took over Park Avenue, we've done our darndest to make sure that we only acquire puppies from reputable, solid breeders. It doesn't mean that a puppy never gets sick when they leave the shop, just like a puppy that gets sick that leaves a rescue facility or any other place that you might acquire a puppy from. Puppies are infants. They're not even babies yet when they're 8 to 10 weeks. And they can get sick. They can get sick from stress. They can get sick from numerous reasons. But ultimately, with the treatment typically of antibiotics or something, they're well and they go on to live very long lives. So we have run Park Avenue with that intent, with that purpose. We're very clean. We strive all the time to improve our procedures. And I just hope that I'll have an opportunity, and other people obviously have an opportunity to speak from both sides. But I would just suggest that I agree with the idea of not buying from a puppy mill. On the other hand, I would tell you within the ordinance to say that a puppy store needs to buy from a rescue or shelter will not fly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else?
Or everybody else.
Hi, Dr. Joseph Freda, live at 72B West Front Street, Red Bank, New Jersey. Park Avenue is not a puppy mill, it's a pet shop. And just like I don't want to buy a used car when I buy a car, I want to buy a new car when I buy a car, I'd rather buy an animal, a puppy, a pet, from somebody reputable who's giving me a reputable product. And I don't think it's up to the council to tell people how to run businesses in the United States. I mean, I'm listening to all of this. Here's a man who's got a great business. He's very good to the people. People come there and find entertainment walking in there. Okay? It's a happy time. And I'm listening to some of you condemning what he's doing. Is this the United States or is this the old Soviet Union? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Doctor. Next.
Hi, my name is Jeff Morton. I'm the owner and president of Shaker Pull Pet Stores here in New Jersey. I'm also a member of PJAC, which is the Pet Industry Joint Advisory Council, which is the animal welfare advocates for pet professionals in New Jersey.
Your name for me? I didn't-
Jeff Morton, M-O-R-T-O-N.
Thank you.
Can I approach and give you a handout?
Sure, please.
What I have here is the state of New Jersey's 2016, directly from the New Jersey Department of Health, so you can Google those figures. That flyer of escort regulations in the state of New Jersey. I prepared a 5-minute talk, so I'm going to try and cut it down to 3 minutes for you. The ordinance which you proposed tonight, which I read on your website, was written by the Humane Society of the United States. It's an animal rights group, as we all know, that aside from that wants to ban my licensed and regulated business, also wants to ban hunting. You want to ban sport fishing. You want your children to eat vegan meals at schools. These are parts of the published policies and directives of the Humane Society. Have you heard of their Meatless Mondays campaign? I'm sure you have. They'd also like to close zoos in the United States. This is the group that wrote your ordinance. As Gary mentioned, it is already illegal in the state of New Jersey, and has been such since 2015, to purchase an animal from a puppy mill. There's very strict regulations that are enforced by both local health departments, state of New Jersey health departments, and the Division of Consumer Affairs. So I read through your ordinance, and one thing really came out to me is the misinformation that they present to you. So I passed out the 2016 Department of Health figures, and if you look at the bottom, the number of animals euthanized in the state of New Jersey is 2,096. In your own ordinance, it says 20,000 dogs were euthanized in the year 2014. Now, one thing that the Humane Society does is providing with that false information, so that they also throw cats in there. New Jersey pet stores don't sell cats. So, including a fictitious number just boosts up their case. It's not true. And they know it's not true. And they willfully and purposely provide you with these false documents in order to really just put forward their political agenda. It would be quite a feather in their cap if they could convince the city of Red Bank to close down a reputable business. And providing you with false information is one of the ways that they do that. Regulations in New Jersey, this is the #1 state in terms of consumer protection for the consumer when they buy a dog from a pet store. There's only 20 stores here in the state. There's 111 animal shelters and 500 animal rescues. And these rescues, left and right, are bringing multiple dogs into our state. You can read about it, you can Google it. The largest importer into the state is St. Hubert's. And they're a very well-known and well-respected animal shelter, but they import dogs into the state, and then they distribute them, yes, to the Monmouth County SPCA and to rescues throughout New Jersey and other states. So we shouldn't take away the ability of Mr. Hager or myself to be able to provide to the public well-bred, healthy, warranted puppies of their choice. If you have an allergy and you need a poodle, you can't go to the Monmouth County SPCA and get a poodle. They don't have them. They're not available. And so if you need to go get a poodle for your family, now you're left up to go onto the internet and Google away. And that's full of scams and bait and switch, and it's fully unregulated, and it's really the wild, wild west. So I would implore you to, well, #1, I'd like you to table this ordinance, because it's provided to you with
It's already
simply
introduced,
things that are untrue.
Let's get beyond that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Violet Savage, and I reside at 51 Spring Street in Red Bank. I am the chair of the Red Bank Animal Welfare Committee, and unanimously we support ordinance to ban sales from puppy and kitten mills in our borough of Red Bank. I appreciate that kittens are included so that it is comprehensive. And basically, we've researched this quite extensively ourselves, and while a lot of people like to hide under the cover of the USDA, the reality is that there are over 10,000 puppy mills in the United States, and there's only a handful of USDA officials that go into these places to inspect them. And even once there are issues that are found, it is merely a slap on the wrist that they receive. In 2010, the Office of the Inspector General released a report detailing the USDA's ineffective enforcement of the Animal Welfare Act, as it's called, and part of the investigation, auditors visited just 81 of the facilities, imagining what a small amount that is, and reviewed records documenting over 28,000 violations over a 2-year period. And they basically make this difficult for you to tell what's a puppy mill. As you can tell tonight, the waters have already been muddied, saying what's reputable, what's not. It is up to the consumer to find reputable breeders. And as a proud rescue parent myself, I will say there are also reputable breeders that are out there, but none of them sell their animals to stores. I personally have witnessed right here in Red Bank a transport truck pulling up with puppies in cages piled to the ceiling in that truck. It was dark, it was loud, and it was not sanitary, and that is certainly not a way that any reputable breeder, rescue group, or shelter would condone transporting their animals. So I ask you on behalf of the Animal Welfare Council and as a member of the Red Bank community to definitely take a close look at this, not to put someone out of business, but to really look at how animals are treated, how the community is protected, and what other solutions there are to this issue without supporting puppy mills or pretending that we're not, calling it something different, pretending that the USDA has the ability to properly enforce the laws that are supposed to be in place to protect us. Also, you'll find, and I believe it's been posted, that there certainly have been violations already for the store that's in town, as well as others, including specifics on how these animals are transported, violations that were had. Certainly it's been documented at Garden State Veterinary Hospital, as well as the Red Bank Veterinary Hospital, of dogs that people have had to suffer emotional and financial hardships with dogs with severe illnesses that have led to death, as well as behavioral problems. And I've witnessed it as well, having owned a dog training and behavior consulting business in town, countless times that people have suffered on the other end of this. And sure, there were excellent, beautiful stories of people that got great, well-behaved, healthy dogs, but that does not make it acceptable for the remainder that have to suffer the opposite side of that. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes.
Hello. Are we on? Hi, I'm Debbie Marks, and I live on Warford Place, and I'm also with. Okay. I'm very passionate about this.
You've got to keep the mic close to you.
Okay, right here. I won't move.
Keep it there.
All right, I'm very passionate about this, and I also did some research, and I had a friend who had an incident with the store in town, which was very...
Let's not talk about specific incidents.
Right.
Let's keep
So
it broad.
yes, and it made me more interested to do the research. However, this summer, there was an incident at the store.
Let's not talk about specific incidents, though.
It was handled very well.
Okay. But
Okay.
Good or bad?
It was handled very well. Okay.
I'm trying to protect the record.
But as far as a puppy mill, you know what? I better stop now because it was on the record. But it's public record, so I'll talk about that at another time. Okay. All righty, thank you. I'm sorry.
Anybody else? Anyone else?
Hi.
Hi.
We're coming here completely
You have
blind to this.
State your name, please.
My name's Elizabeth Spurrier, and this is my son Callum.
I'm sorry, how do you spell your last name?
Spurrier, Spurrier.
And your address, please?
Sure, it is 11 Victorian Court in West Long Branch, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm coming here completely blind. I'm a mother of 6 children. We have had many cats and dogs. I've worked with the ASPCA. We chose to go to Park Avenue because they have a great reputation. And
The
I
dog
want,
wants to talk too.
what's that?
The dog wants to talk
Oh, yeah,
also.
this is Winston. He knows you, go ahead. I will say that, you know, being a mother of 6, and I have actually 8 pets in my house. I'm a full-time working mom. We care for all our pets very well. We're a very loving family. We wanted to find a dog that actually worked for our family. And I have to say that I have 4 adoptive cats, 2 sets of sisters, just recently in the last year. So we go both ends of it, you know. But for us and our family, we wanted to find a dog that really worked for our family. And I do have young children, and I wanted them to work for my pets at home. So I don't find them to be a puppy mill. I find that they were so responsive to all my needs, and I drove them crazy for a whole week because I wanted the dog for Christmas, and he was sick, so they would not let me have him. So this one cried, right, because he didn't think he was going to get him for Christmas, and he was in a nebulizer, he was getting his medication, and they took such good care of this dog, and they stayed late for me on Christmas Eve so I could bring him home. So my experience with them was phenomenal, and I have had dogs from a puppy store that did not go well, not Park Avenue. They were fabulous, and as I said, I'm a mother of 6. I have 2 full-time jobs. This was really hard for me to get here tonight, and I was lost in texting you. So I apologize, but it meant a lot to me to come tonight because they really did such a justice to my family, and I love Winston, and they were fabulous. And I drove her crazy because I visited the dog every day for a week till I can bring him home, and they were fabulous. But they were stringent on making sure that he was healthy before he came home.
Thank
Okay?
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Anybody else?
No, you don't owe me anything. Thank you.
Oh, you want to say hi? Nervous.
I'm Debbie Grimaldi. I live at 116 Dr. James Parker Boulevard. I have to be honest, I'm a little nervous. But when I got a phone call and I found out about this, I had to like pinch myself. I think my husband and I both pinched ourselves because I wasn't sure what country I was living in, to be honest with you. I have the right to choice. I've had many dogs. I've adopted, I bought from the pet store in the mall when I was younger. He was sick. I took care of him. He was my best buddy. His name was actually Buddy. I actually rescued the dog, and we lost her because she had multiple mixed parts. Nobody knew what she was. She couldn't breathe because her parts didn't match. My husband and I were devastated. These are my children. So I purposely chose this time to go to Park Avenue. And it wasn't that I went once or twice. I went 4 times. And I actually didn't even go in to get the dog that I wanted because he had this amazing little long-haired Chihuahua. Her name is Lily. She is amazing. I wouldn't trade her for the world, okay? And I don't understand why anybody gets to take that right away from me. That's my right. And when my husband and I thought about it, he said, well, because I teach, if you're gonna go buy a fish for your classroom, do I have to now go in the Navasink and go fishing for it? Because that's what you're asking me to do, okay? And my thought was, since I'm not a mother, for whatever personal reasons, if I choose to have a child or adopt it, or if I choose to be a surrogate, I have that choice. You don't get to tell me that I have to go adopt from where you want me to adopt from. It's just not fair. So, I mean, honestly, I was shocked this was even a topic we were talking about because there's bigger issues in Red Bank. You can come to my street and start ticketing all the people for the signs at 2-hour parking. But to tell me where I'm going to get my next fur baby from is appalling to me. It's absolutely appalling that this is what's on the agenda tonight. My husband was so beside himself, he wouldn't come. So I came because I felt it was important. These are my babies. I mean, I know it sounds crazy to people. These are my fur babies. And I have the right to choose where I adopt my child from. That's pretty much it.
Jim Scavone, Executive Director of Red Bank River Center. I actually just have a few questions about the ordinance. admit we read it yesterday at the last minute and have been trying to do a little bit of research. But there's some things that are unclear, so I'm just wondering, in the ordinance it does mention at one point that consumers are free to get pets from hobby breeders. But then when it talks about the pets that pet stores can sell, it specifically eliminates that category. And there was confusion on our part as to why, if you are allowing consumers to get pets from hobby breeders, you wouldn't allow pet stores to get pets from reputable breeders to resell them.
Yeah, those are one of the issues in which the amendments can be made. That's a
Okay.
discussion.
Okay.
That's for consideration.
All right, and then you may have already answered my second question then, which was just that, would you allow or consider allowing pet stores to get pets from reputable breeders that are not puppy mills, and then, for resale? So you said that that is a possibility. I guess I would urge you on behalf of River Center to seriously look at the ordinance and make sure that I think I can pretty much speak on behalf of everyone when I say I don't think anyone wants to promote or allow the sale of any animals that are mistreated or would come from such horrific places. I would just encourage you from the business community to make sure that when you're looking at the ordinance and passing the ordinance, that you are not limiting any business from doing legal or moral sales, and that you are just strictly limiting the sale of those puppies and kittens from those mills. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening. I'm Cindy Knowles. I'm the owner of Ferrylicious up in White House Station, New Jersey. But interesting enough, go ahead.
What is your last name?
Knowles.
No.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Knowles. Sorry. Interesting enough, 7 or 8 years ago, before I was even in business with my puppy shop, I actually bought 2 puppies from Park Avenue from the previous owner. Great experience. Those dogs have been great. There's nothing wrong with them. They were healthy from day one. It was a previous owner. That shop's been here for years and years. So obviously the shop is doing something right. No business stays in business, and I'll tell you, I've had many of them. No business stays in business when they do things wrong. So you could just see by the longevity of the shop. There's obviously good customers, happy customers coming from there. I'll clarify something for you though, because I'm pretty versed in the state law. By state law, a pet shop can't buy from a hobby breeder. They can only buy from USDA licensed and regulated breeders with 0 violations on their breeding record. There are only about 1,500 USDA regulated breeders that can even consider, that a pet store could even consider buying from. Not tens of thousands. These are USDA licensed, regulated, inspected breeders that are inspected yearly. I know that because we have to pull their USDA reports yearly. We cannot bring a puppy in our store if it's not compliant with a USDA license in the correct manner. Of those 1,500 USDA regulated breeders that can even sell into the state of New Jersey, only about 80%, maybe 70% are compliant with New Jersey law. New Jersey has the strictest regulations in the country when it comes to sourcing puppies for our stores. The regulations at the state level are second to none with any other state out there. So know that if you say that we could buy from a hobby breeder in Red Bank, or that you're going to allow, that would be going against the state law. State law does not allow hobby breeders. And it's the same people pushing this ordinance that pushed for that at the state level to only have it USDA licensed. They were the ones who said, no, we only want USDA licensed breeders because they're the ones who are inspected. So they're the ones who even took hobby breeders off the table. We were doing so well buying from, smaller hobby breeders. But they weren't happy with that, so they took the smaller hobby breeders away. So for you to put an ordinance in place to say he can buy from a hobby breeder, that would be against state law. So really look at this ordinance, because it's really, really written pretty incorrectly. And it needs to be looked at, in a much better light. I'd like to show you, we're really tired of hearing about these horrific puppy mills. I don't know if you could pass these around, but I don't know if anybody who's posed those pictures to you have shown you any pictures with them in them. But those are real breeders. Those are real pictures with us in them. I don't think you will see, looking at them, that those look like horrific puppy mills. These are the breeders that are supplying our stores. These are the breeders that are supplying Garrick. Wonderful places.
Do you have the names of these breeders?
I could give you a listing of all these breeders if you'd like. Yep. And then just to show you, and I'm sure Gary would have very similar things like this. These are just examples of our customers coming to us, happy with their healthy, wonderful puppies. Again, why are you trying to take away, people's choice? I get people that come in, they might have tried to adopt. There's not a hypoallergenic dog for them in the shelter. They have small children. They can't bring a pit bull mix into their home. That's their choice. You have to give people their choice. They choose to go to a shelter, fine. If they don't want to do that, they want to come to us because they're looking for a certain breed. And know that a puppy store is the most highly regulated for dealing with health issues. Do you know that we're liable for up to 2 times the cost of the dog if a dog gets sick and a vet marks the dog unfit? This is an example. Now, our puppies get sick. Gary, this lady said that her dog was sick and Gary didn't release it. We do that quite a bit. Sometimes something can be incubating for 10 days. The puppy is perfectly fine, goes home and gets sick. But guess what? We have to take care of that. Over the horrible weather over Christmas, I had a bad pneumonia case. But guess
Okay, let's not get into this.
No, but I'm going to just show you. I'm going to just show you that here's a
We believe you.
Okay, but a pet store is the only place. A shelter or rescue doesn't have these regulations where they have to pay for the vet bills. A shelter or rescue can wash their hands of it. Sorry, we're not liable. There's no regulations with shelter and rescues in the state of New Jersey. The only place that a consumer has consumer protection to a really high degree, 2 times the cost of the dog, is in a pet store. So all I have to say is you please understand the laws that are on the books at the state level and know that consumers are protected and that consumers in New Jersey want their choice and they come to us for it. And we do a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before Kate speaks, you want to ask a quick question from Red? Without getting into it, obviously, I agree with the intent of the ordinance wholeheartedly. Again, puppy mills, but I mean, this was the whole point of introducing something. And I know Kathy asked me what do I have a problem with in the ordinance, but I mean, it literally specifically says to the woman who just spoke that it's a, you can only, in Red Bank, you're only able to buy from or have a dog, buy one from a breed-specific rescue organization, shelter, or a hobby breeder. I mean, I was just introduced by you guys, and she's saying it's against the law. I just want to ask Greg, we just introduced a law, an ordinance that goes against New Jersey law. If that is true, obviously, we don't know what she could be saying. Just it's an argument's sake. What is that? What is the?
It's in the recitals, and the actual code doesn't mention hobby breeders. In essence, the ordinance requires any persons selling, bartering, advertising for sale of a dog or a cat in the borough to source those animals from an animal care facility or an animal rescue organization. That's what it does. The recitals and the facts that have been called into question, obviously, are really not what the law, they're recitals, they're facts upon which the council is making a decision, so people's criticism or support for them are important for you to consider. But what the law of the borough would be is starting at section 1, where chapter 231 is amended, and then that would be a new section of the ordinance. That's what the law we're talking about is. The hobby breeder, and I understand that, and I understand the speed of the numbers and things like that. Obviously, that's important because the recitals indicate what the council considered in making the decision to pass the law. The text of the actual code that you were talking about starts at section 1 and ends before section 2.
Kate Triviano, 22 Layton Avenue. I'm learning more as I'm here, and I just wanted to reframe the conversation because it seems it's not about being able to adopt versus buy. And I mean, I'm a pet owner too. I have 2 dogs, a bird, fish. I have a lot of pets. But anyways, it seems like this is more so about transport and sourcing. It's not about once it gets to the shop and the person falling in love with the animal, which, I mean, of course, we all love our animals. This is more about where you're sourcing them from. And I was reading the ordinance, and it says you can buy a puppy at 8 weeks in the new resolution. I mean, that's where we're at currently, right? It's 8 weeks. It seems like more the concern would have to be, at what age are they allowed to start keeping them in the back? You know, how young are they allowed to be keeping them in the back of the store? I mean, that's more of a concern to me than keeping it at 8 weeks. And I guess understanding the source of where the dog comes from. Obviously, the puppy mill thing is a really gray area. As it's already been discussed tonight, that is a very underregulated industry. I've looked into that myself. The amount of people that are actually going around to make sure that they're following code and regulated, and there's thousands of them, is very small. So that becomes a very gray area. I think when we're talking about sourcing and people knowing what they're buying, a great way for that to be would be that when it's displayed in any pet store or any pet shop, when there's the address that needs to be provided, it should not be allowed to be a P.O. box. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? When you go to a pet shop and on the crate it has the information about the animal, you have to provide an address on that. And some stores provide a P.O. box. That's not really telling you where the animal originated from. So when I'm looking at what I would like to see be explored in a resolution to protect businesses, so that businesses can really come up here and say, I'm doing the right thing. Like I'm getting these animals the right way. I mean, let's give them the tools and the actual language in a resolution where, you know, it's not a bunch of fluff. We're showing where we're sourcing the animal from. And I feel like maybe regulating in other ways would be one of those ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Anybody else?
I'm sorry. I know Councilman Zipper asked for the state regulations, but we also did some data on the inspections of the breeders, number of inspections.
Those are all from the state of New Jersey.
I'm sorry.
I can tell you, he does file a report with the clerk where all of his animals come from, right? We give me those every year. We've had over requests for them. So I can give you the most recent set of reports. I don't think I would have access to information on inspections because I don't think they're all local. Is that correct?
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at.
The only inspections we would have, or she would have a record of, would be the local inspections by our health officer or animal control officer. That's the record she would have, I would think.
Okay.
Other than the records that are given with respect to the source of the animals.
I will forward you the most recent reports that he has sent me. Okay?
And it would be also, it should also be kind of to pull down the state regs that have been discussed.
I'll ask our health inspector to get those because I didn't
Sure.
Thank
you.
Yes.
Hi, how are you? My name is Lacey Solis. I actually manage Park Avenue. I have been there for many, many years, well before Gary took over the store with the original owner. I'm also a veterinary technician. I worked at animal hospitals in between him buying the store. I went for a few years and I'm a veterinary technician also. My staff here, all of my girls, we take very, very good care of these puppies. You want to talk about transportation? I am not putting a baby puppy on a plane, underneath a plane. Who's watching that dog? Not happening. So if you want to, the dog was drove in on a truck with a bunch of other dogs. Yes, they pick up our dogs and they drive them to us because I'm not putting these little infants underneath a plane. Me and Megan, the other manager, we go above and beyond to find all of the best breeders that we can. I go through inspection reports. I ask for pictures of parents. I get OFAs. I get everything that I can for my customers that I possibly can do. When they come into the store, we do everything for them. I mean, they're fluffed and pampered. I mean, and not about just being at the store, just we do everything that we possibly can. Not every animal is gonna come in 100% healthy. You can have two amazing parents, whether it's from a puppy mill or from a private breeder who you're saying is reputable, and it can have a problem. It's like saying that two healthy parents, humans, can't have a baby that has something wrong with it. These are living things. So to say, oh, our dogs are unhealthy is not fair. That's not fair to say, because it doesn't always have to come from the parents. It's a part of life. We try our best. We love our puppies. I do everything in my power to make sure that we get from the best breeders that I can. And if the USDA isn't doing their part, that's all I can go off of. That's all anyone can go off of. Where else are we supposed to look? And the USDA shut down their website. We can't even find the USDA records anymore. It's a big circle that they're just, I don't understand anymore. I really don't. And I just wanted to say, because I've been there for many, many years before, Gary has even been there, and it breaks my heart to even see any of this. And, I just wanted to speak and let you guys know that, we care and we really do our best. Not everyone does, and I know that. There's plenty of stores around here that I've went into myself recently, and I had to walk out with my husband because I almost was in tears, reading the breeders. You should be going to Middletown. Reading the breeder information, I know for a fact they're puppy mills. I know that they are. I have rescues myself. I go both ways here. I have 3 rescues at home and a puppy from Park Avenue who is amazing, 4 years old and absolutely amazing. So, it's something for all of us to really think about, and this is a very big issue.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Cal's trying to gather information, ultimately I might have to invent this. So I know there's a lot of anecdotes and stories, and feel-good stories and horror stories, but you guys, everyone out there is clearly more educated on the issue than I think anybody up here. What are the whole, you said you went to Middletown, you saw, so the issue really isn't so much Park Avenue, is what about the next pet store that comes to Red Bank? Ultimately this applies to everyone, not just Park Avenue. So what are those holes? Is there recommendations you have for the ordinance? And obviously, this ordinance disrupts your business. That's why you're here, right? So is there a way of less restrictively regulating that would fix those holes so when you walk into Middletown, you know it's a breeder? Right? How do we know that? Or is there, you have any suggestions for how the ordinance could read more differently?
The township there should be, as you said, that we send everything over to you guys. It shows on each one of our puppies, we call them condos, they're crates. It shows what puppy it is, where they're from, USDA numbers, and you can just simply look into it and see that there's bad inspections and that they're a bad breeder. So whoever's running or looking at the facilities in Middletown should really do better, because you can come into our store and see, and none of them have bad records. I make sure of it personally. I can stand here right now and say that none of my breeders have bad inspections in the last 2 years. I can promise you that. As for
How would you define a puppy mill?
bad inspections, I've seen it. Oh, trust me, I've seen it. I've seen puppies that are available, and I look into it, and it's horrific. Inadequate health care, there's pus in the eyes, there's the teeth rotting of the mouth. There's X amount of dogs, over 100 and something dogs, and you see all these horrible things, and I see it. And you know what I do? I click out of it, and I don't get the dog. Some people just don't care. We care. Okay, we care. I do it. I've been doing it for a very, very long time. And even working at the animal hospital, you say get from a private breeder? A private breeder? A reputable breeder? I had some lady selling Yorkies, and her dog was in the animal hospital, inbreeding. Just inbreeding. You don't know what they're doing because they're not regulated. That's basically what I'm trying to say. So it's tough, but all we can do is base it off of the USA. If you're saying the USDA is bad, then what do we do? Then what do we do?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Brooks. Go ahead. You don't look like Mr. Brooks.
Hi, my name is Dana West, 1044 Bowsprit, and I am the owner of the pet shop in Middletown. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I wasn't at your store.
Okay, she was not at my store. Tom is here, he has inspected my store many times. I have never, ever had any problems. Puppies do get sick, and when we say sick, we don't mean sick, they get a cold. We deal with colds, they're infants, they're babies. They get little colds, and just like a baby would get a cold. It's nothing horrendous, we don't deal with any kind of heavy illness or sickness.
Okay, well, we've heard that, so let's talk about the
Okay,
policy.
all the puppies are from USDA breeders. All of my breeders are regulated. They have no violations.
You understand, we're not trying to regulate Middletown.
Okay, well, somebody just came up and said something bad about Middletown.
We're not paying attention to that because I said we're not going to keep it personal, and the council will disregard those comments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Giuliano. Mr. Brooks is getting taller.
Mr. Brooks, but you'd like to, you can go ahead, it's okay.
No, sir, go ahead.
All right, thank you. And Dr. Joseph Freda Brothers Sausage. His father had the best sausage in all of New York. Freda Brothers Sausage.
You didn't gain any weight by eating that sausage, Daddy.
You know what's so funny is that I used to go to see you years ago. We'll catch up. We'll catch up. As you can see, I'm still very healthy.
Your name for the record, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matty Giuliano. I am the chaplain of the Monmouth County SPCA. It is a pleasure to be here. It is a distinct honor and a privilege to speak in support of this ordinance prohibiting the retail sale of cats and dogs in pet stores within the borough of Red Bank. I feel it is important to let each of you know who I am and why I believe this ordinance is vital to the health and welfare of animals, not just here in Red Bank, but throughout our entire state. For 10 years, I served as an animal cruelty officer in New Jersey, completing approximately 2,000 animal cruelty investigations. In that time, I have seen the pain and anguish pet owners have experienced when they made the emotional impulse decision to purchase a cat or a dog from a less than desirable breeder. While I am not going to take up your evening with all of the specific details of past cases I have handled involving the sale of puppy mill dogs, I would like to address this body from my current position as the chaplain for the Monmouth County SPCA, as well as a faith ally with the Humane Society of the United States. St. Francis of Assisi, who is my patron saint, as well as the patron saint of animals, once said, "Always preach the gospel, and when necessary, use words." So that is what I intend to do here this evening. As a chaplain for God's creatures, both great and small, I can say with the greatest of certainty that the creation of our companion animals needs to not only be a gift of love, but a creation that is celebrated, respected, and revered. While there are many who believe that we have dominion over all of creation, that dominion does not mean domination, and that we must be good, responsible stewards on their behalf. The reason why passage of an ordinance prohibiting the retail sale of cats and dogs is essential to Red Bank is self-evident. As countless investigations and reports reveal the awful, inhumane conditions under which these animals are kept before they are put on display for the unsuspecting consumer. Not to mention the horrific conditions that dogs and cats left behind are forced to endure. St. Francis of Assisi made it very clear when he said, "Not to hurt our humble brethren is our first duty to them." But to stop there is not enough. We have a higher mission, to be of service to them whenever they require it. In short, we have been entrusted by God to care for His creation, our animal brothers and sisters, as St. Francis would call them. As a result, we have both a duty and an obligation to do what is both right and merciful, for this will allow us to continue to walk humbly in the Lord's presence here on our shared planet. I don't know what, if any, relationship any of you have ever had with a specific companion animal. I know for myself, personally, that I have been truly blessed by my pets, my animal companions, and that the shared love and devotion that we have has awakened a dormant part of my soul, thus leading me down a path to be a voice for all of God's creatures. I believe that all of you here this evening, deep within your spirit, know that this municipal ordinance is long overdue, as several, in fact hundreds, of other municipalities have already passed it within the state of New Jersey. Redefining how cats and dogs are bought and sold reflects the kindness and compassion these animals deserve as a vital part of God's creation. For allowing any kind of animal cruelty to continue to exist is an affront to our very own basic sense of morality. Ladies and gentlemen, I consider myself to be just a humble servant of God and all of His creatures, doing my best to relay the message to everyone that all of our animals are our brothers and sisters. So I wish to leave you with this, another quote attributed to my patron saint. Start by doing what is necessary, then by doing what is possible. And before you know it, you'll be doing the impossible. I think that implementing this ordinance will put Red Bank on the right track to be able to do all three. May the Lord continue to give you peace, and I thank you all for your time here this evening.
Thank you, Matt.
May I submit this so the council can, if you would like it?
The clerk.
There you go, thank you.
Mr. Brooks, I'm sorry.
No, the young lady go first, and I'll ask my question to council after.
Good evening, Council. My name is Karen Fasano-Thompson. I'm an attorney here in Red Bank. My address is 40 Alston Court. May I approach council members with a memorandum that I prepared? I apologize for not distributing it to you earlier. I think it would have alleviated a lot of the concerns that Councilman Whelan and Councilman Taylor have raised. However, I will be happy to go over it in detail during my presentation. Mayor, Ben, I'm going to skip you because I don't think I have enough copies, but I did email it to you.
I got the email. No, I got it.
Okay.
He's not going to charge me extra by reading.
I may have an extra copy. Actually, Mayor, I do have an extra copy. Thank you. I know, I have one. Thank you. So as a preliminary statement, before I get into the legal analysis, the council should know that I am the chair of the legislative committee for the Red Bank Animal Welfare Committee. My position is not to take a more so passionate approach to this, but to explain to you the legal ramifications of the ordinance that the borough has proposed. I will start by just qualifying some of the statements that have been made by some of the very passionate advocates in the room. First of all, this is not an assault on any local business owner, and that should be made clear. This is an ordinance that pertains to a moral obligation and also to a public policy directive that our state, our nation, our community has embraced for decades, for hundreds of years, with respect to the humane treatment of animals. So while I do hear that there's a significant amount of testimony or public comment tonight with respect to what they perceive as an assault on any local business, that's not at all the intent. I will also open with indicating that 111 different localities within the state of New Jersey have passed either the identical ordinance or something exceedingly similar. The only difference being that some ordinances allow for the sale of puppies that are, and this is an issue that we have as well, they allow for the sale of puppies from what the term that's described in the Red Bank ordinance as hobby breeders. That term needs to be defined in the ordinance. So I agree with Councilman Taylor and Whelan that term needs to be defined. Hobby breeders need to be defined. The issue that you get to when you get to the big picture in this type of legislation is that we don't have the manpower, we don't have the finances, and nor do we have the ability to legislate, monitor, enforce hobby breeders. That is why most localities that have adopted these ordinances have excluded that provision. So the provisions as they're written, as the current Red Bank ordinance is written, specifically excludes specific language as to hobby breeders because they can't be regulated. And as you've heard testimony from not only local owners, you've heard testimony from the manager of the local Red Bank store, the Middletown store, the USDA is unreliable. And I will get into that with specificity. The USDA is completely unreliable in their reporting, in their inspections, and in their numbers. So we have to regulate. The other issue that was brought up by Ms. Knowles was that this is somehow against state law. That's absolutely and categorically incorrect. Local municipalities and boroughs have the authority to issue any type and enact any type of ordinance or legislation that pertains to an issue that has not been comprehensively and completely legislated by the state. And this is a situation where that is indeed the case. I also want to point out that Governor Chris Christie enacted in 2015, and I'm going to ask the council members to turn to page 2. Governor Chris Christie signed the Pet Purchase Protection Act in 2015. And that required stores to post information about animal origins and when they last received veterinarian care. In full disclosure, Chris Christie did veto nearly the exact ordinance that is proposed in Red Bank currently. The reason why he vetoed it was the state version of that bill included sanctions for pet store owners, like the local owners who've testified here today, included sanctions for violations of fines up to $20,000. If you had 3 offenses, you would no longer be able to operate your business. Governor Christie felt that that was an overreach by the government, and he felt that there's a better way to reach across the aisle and come to some type of agreement on this. However, he did endorse the bill as it stood without those violation sanctions. So there is no valid argument to be made that the Red Bank ordinance as proposed is in violation of any state law. So I'm going to go back to my original proposal. I also want to just step back for a second and indicate that no one is vilifying animals in this ordinance. None of us who are here tonight are here to vilify any of the animals, whether they're adopted from a pet store, if they're from a puppy mill, or they're from a local rescue shelter. We're all here to advocate for the animals. So that's I think a misconception. I also want to dispel the myth that we are here to somehow impinge upon anybody's right to choose what type of dog they adopt. Anybody who's truly interested in adopting an animal of a certain breed or a certain type, I will mention that hypoallergenic dogs, while they get a lot of fanfare and a lot of, we have to have pet stores, so we have hypoallergenic dogs, they represent less than 7% of the dogs in the United States of America. So while I understand that that's a concern for some individuals, it is not a valid concern on the municipal level, the state level, or any type of other regulated issue. With respect to the USDA, I'm going to direct the council's attention to page 2.
I think we have it, and I think we can read it. Maybe you can just do a quick summary.
Quick summary of the USDA regulations. So the USDA regulations pursuant to regulating animal breeders. Specifically, the Animal Welfare Act was enacted in 1966. Animal welfare and inspection reports were publicly available up until February 3rd, 2017, at which time the current administration decided that funding for that type of publication was no longer necessary, so there are no longer any records pertaining to USDA inspections or USDA reports pursuant to pet breeding facilities. However, taking that aspect away, if you go prior to 2017, if you look at the quality of what first of all, the USDA, if you look at their requirements for licensing, and this is where we get lost in the muck, the licensing requirements for USDA breeding facilities fall far short of humane standards. Without getting into details, we can get into that at our next session.
Well, obviously, we wouldn't have the authority or control to supersede whatever the feds do.
And nor, exactly. But they fall far short of what would even remotely broach humane standards. They also are loosely applied. or completely unenforced. We also have inspection and staff resources that are completely inadequate. There's no way that the USDA inspects the number of puppy mills. Well, they don't call them puppy mills, but the issue is they have to register. So in order to be inspected, you have to register. So if you're running a puppy mill, you're simply not going to register. And there's no way that the USDA is going to find out about it. So when we have all these pet store owners testifying about or making public comment about the USDA and how they rely on their reports, they're completely unreliable. There's nothing that points to a USDA breeder as being a breeder that purports to operate under conditions that are humane to animals. With respect to
Okay, can we wrap it up?
wrapping up on the issue of legal challenges so the council has information with respect to 240 different jurisdictions in the United States have enacted legislation either identical or similar to what is proposed right now. There have been multiple challenges on the federal and the state level. They have all failed. They have challenged this legislation on not only the Commerce Clause, being that they interfered with businesses, either local or interstate business, or that they simply were an imposition or an overreach of local government. All of those applications at the state and federal circuit level have failed. So the Red Bank proposal as it stands is sustainable, it's enforceable, it is legally cognizable, and under no circumstance is there a necessity for change. However, with respect to the comments that have been made, there are potentially, we can define hobby breeders, which would allow for more regulation, and then the borough would have to simply decide from that point what allocation of resources they decide. But the contention under any circumstance that this in any way limits a consumer's ability to choose a pet is absolutely false. You can do your homework, you can do your research, and you can choose and buy and adopt the pet of your choice. Under no circumstance and under no cognizant argument does that make any sense. Thank you for your time.
You're falling asleep back there.
No, sir. Thank you.
Just go ahead. Speak louder.
Yes, sir. William Brooks, Tower Hill Avenue, Red Bank. I need somebody to clarify for me, please, what a hobby breeder is. Never heard of the term.
A breeder that's not regulated by anybody. They can do whatever they want.
That doesn't say anything.
There
All
are
right,
small, I can breed a dog, I'd be a hobby breeder.
Okay,
And I can do it from home.
okay.
Okay, Bill, let's get on with your comment.
Well, I just wanted to find out if that, and I think it's been answered, would prevent me from buying a dog from a reputable breeder if I chose to, under this ordinance. This, in no way, shape, or form would impinge that action, correct? Counselor?
As a resident of Red Bank buying?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Do anything you want.
But it is really clear, Mayor, I think
The
that.
regulation is on the seller side of the equation.
Okay.
It's not on a
that's all.
buyer, it's only on a seller.
But that doesn't pertain to a seller. My breeder, AKC, they're Great Pyrenees that gone to Westminster, so obviously they're a reputable breed. But this would not affect that in any way, shape, or form. Is that the intent?
Only retail establishment.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Thank
The
you.
ordinance is for the general license.
Okay,
great.
Please,
Quick question for you, because you're saying from the retail, it would affect the retailer side. Ms. Mazzano is saying that there would be no effect in its current state. I guess my question is it that if this ordinance stands as is, and there is no changes to Ms. Mazzano's point, is Park Avenue Puppy still allowed to operate in Red Bank? I think that's the actually, because if everyone agrees that we don't want puppy mills, but we want the consumer to be able to choose from a reputable breeder, can both of those equations happen in its current form? I guess that would be the main question that I have.
The sale has to be from the site of the hobby breeder. It has to be where they bred the dogs. So that's the normal language that's included across the country in these type of statutes. So it would effectively And that's not something that the borough can't change. The borough could amend the ordinance to include that if we indeed pass this ordinance, that only animals that are from certified breeders that, let's say, Red Bank decides to certify their own local breeders.
But that's not in the,
Park Avenue
but
can
that's
sell
not
that,
in
or
this.
whoever else.
But you're saying what you're saying is, but that's not in its current state. So
No,
right
it is.
now, with
It
the
is.
currently
There
operating.
is language in the current state that hobby breeders are exempted from the prohibition. So yes, hobby breeders currently are exempted. So to Mr. Brooks' point, he could absolutely go adopt a dog or buy a dog from a hobby breeder. He could do that.
All right, I think you've answered the question, and our attorney will answer it.
Make it really easy, okay? So right now, if you have a pet shop, you sell dogs. I'm not sure about cats, but most cats are involved. I'm learning and growing here, okay? And you sell dogs, you have to get you have to source them from a USDA licensed breeder. It's annual reports and what have you. Also, the website for the USDA is back up as of August 2017, which I think is an important piece of information. I think anybody had that right out there. This takes that one step farther. It says not just you have to source them from USDA licensed breeders, you have to source them from an animal rescue organization or an animal care facility. I would presume that that would vastly affect the business model of Park
Well,
Avenue
respectfully,
running.
Mr. Cannon, that's not what the ordinance says. The ordinance-
This is not a dialogue.
Okay, well, that's what it says. So it says. Yeah. Yeah, that's what it says.
So essentially, we have a lot of work to do.
Well, that's why we said, that's why we're talking about it.
And why wouldn't we just, I mean, obviously this is great dialogue that we've been having for over an hour hearing both sides. This is what I was asking at the beginning, why wouldn't we want to hear an hour worth of this before we vote? We essentially voted, and that's why I voted no, because I think every one of us up here is agreeing that we're hearing a lot of this for the first time, which is why we should have had the public speak first for the hour, hearing all of this commentary on both sides of the argument, but instead, my colleagues here all said, no, let's introduce it, and then if we have to change it, then we'll change it. But isn't it important to hear all this first before we decide to vote on something? And now we're all sitting up here saying, we really have no idea what we're talking about, and we're essentially going to have to change it. I mean, if we're amending the if we were a town that didn't have the puppy store, then we could just pass it as the mayor, you pointed out, the county just did as a PR move. But for us to introduce something in its current form, when we have an active pet store, that's where I have a problem. If we were any other town that just didn't have anything to get I just think we still have a lot of work to do, and I think we should get people from both sides of the aisle here and figure out what, I think the biggest thing here is what is the actual definition of a hobby breeder, and how can we change that into Red Bank's ordinance. But I just think it was definitely a mistake to introduce it, and I look forward to trying to work with both sides to have no puppy mills, but have reputable people like Gary Hager and Park Avenue Puppy State Red Bank.
Moving ahead, Mr. Poco.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Mayor said, this is Mr. Poku from 90 Bank Street. All right. When I think about the discussion tonight, you know, this is a real civic lesson that we've had here. Passionate people on both sides, and I'm inclined to go along with this young gentleman here. What's your name, sir?
Michael.
Michael, yeah. I'm inclined to go with Michael's views. And this is why. I mean, when I think of Maslow's laws, okay, at the bottom of the pyramid is, you know, shelter, food, and all that stuff. The fact that we're talking about dogs, dog lives matter today, I mean, like we're at the highest level of the pyramid, okay, and if we're gonna give time to the parking issue and think about it in a manner where it will suit all the different parties that are interested in have a stake in it, I think we need to do the same thing with this subject. You know, set up something like a committee of all the different parties and all that, let them hash it out. You know, so the ordinance has been introduced. Okay, but there's no reason why there couldn't be parliamentary wise an amendment of sorts to have a resting period, you know, where all the parties can come together and come out with something that is customized for Red Bank.
Thank you. Anybody else?
This one wants to say something.
who you are and where you live. You just
Hello, my name is Jacqueline Freda. I am Dr. Freda's daughter. I have a beautiful mom named Danka Freda. I've come to say that Bark Avenue is an awesome store. Awesome puppy stores. My friends at school were saying, go to Bark Avenue, go to Bark Avenue, go to Bark Avenue. They have the most awesomest dogs that you would ever see, that you would almost cry saying, I want them, Mommy, I want them, I want them. So finally, when I saw them, I'm like, I gotta get one. And my mom said that I'm gonna get one for Christmas. She got it for me earlier. When I came home with my dad, I'm like, there is a dog in my house. I literally cried for 5 minutes. I couldn't believe a dog from Bark Avenue was there. I was like, I can't believe this near dog store nearby. It is the most absolutely awesome store that I've ever seen, and I please hope you guys don't remove it from the Red Bank. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Leach. I'm also an attorney in New Jersey, but I represent many of the stores that are here today. Just wanted to go through a couple of quick points, and I will be very brief.
Thank you.
So Governor Christie did veto a piece of legislation last year. Went far beyond the issue in this resolution, or in this ordinance. We can go through all of that later, but can't read
I don't think it's
into
germane.
You think it is germane?
No, I don't think it's
No,
germane.
that's my point. It is not. There are over 100 municipalities that have passed similar ordinances in the state, but as you heard earlier, there's about 20 stores in the state. They can't be everywhere. The fact that there's 5 or 6 of them here today shows how important this issue is. So it passes in municipalities where there is no one there to talk about the other side of the issue. It's simply a matter of numbers. People go out, my clients cannot. Hobby breeders are the mom and pops who, I have a couple of animals, I breed them, I'm a hobby breeder. Pet stores cannot buy under the state law that's in existing today from those hobby breeders, nor can they buy from substandard breeders or puppy mills. The law in the state is very clear. We have the most comprehensive Pet Purchase Protection Act in the country. No one disputes that. It works, it's been effective, the state enforces it. We would welcome the opportunity to work with all of you to put together an ordinance that would empower the borough to better enforce that act here in the municipality. Your Department of Health can get involved to better inspect Bark Avenue or any other store that may want to come into this borough. But that's the way that the ordinance should be approached, not just with a ban enforcing these folks to source their animals from under-regulated rescues and centers from elsewhere that do not have the sourcing requirements and the regulations that my clients do. So please reach out to us and we'll be glad to work with you at any time.
Thank you, Mr. Leach.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, can I make one quick point?
Hold on, let me just start, anybody else that's spoken?
Sure.
Sir. I said sir, I didn't say Mr. Nsoma. The other guy was a bag of, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Sean, I'm kidding you.
No.
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Mayor, I see your Facebook post.
Yes, just identify yourself for the rest.
Sean Nsoma, South Street. I see your Facebook post, and I see you clearly drove this. What this looks like to me is, number one, it represents a lot of risk. Obviously, you're simply targeting one business. The council and the mayor are targeting one business. Clearly, that business is going to file a lawsuit if this ordinance passes. How much is that going to cost? You may not mind, Mr. Cannon, but for everybody else, how much would a lawsuit cost the borough? Could a lawsuit, Mr. Mayor, how much could a potential lawsuit cost the borough?
If it costs anything, I don't know.
Right. So
I just want to correct you, we are not targeting any one person.
Well, there's one.
This is a general policy statement.
No, it's not. It's targeting one local business. Let's all keep. No, but I mean it is. There's only one local business. You're passing an ordinance for that.
There are other pet stores in town.
What's that?
There are other pet stores in town.
Sure, but they don't sell dogs.
I don't know what they do.
They don't sell dogs. I go there all the time. I'm a dog lover. So what I'd really encourage you is, instead of passing this hasty bill to make everybody pat themselves on the back and feel good about and feel good about themselves because they're against puppy mills. What the gentleman in the back said is absolutely factually correct. We do have one of the best We have one of the most stringently regulated, puppy industry in the country. And what this is it's targeting one single local business, and it's incredibly redundant, and it's got open-ended risk that, as you just admitted, Mr. Mayor, could go on forever. So, and quite frankly, I would much rather buy a puppy. And you can go on any of these rescue websites and take a look. Go search for a Labrador Retriever puppy. I have a little girl at home. That's the kind of breed I probably want for her. So if I want to try to find one of those, I have to go pretty far. Sometimes out to Pennsylvania to go find one. Whereas I can go to, or I can just go to my local pet store, right? So you're creating tremendous inconvenience for everybody. So I would ask, again, respectfully, that the mayor and council reconsider and table this. This is a hard thing to vote against, so I commend, I wasn't here, but Ms. Whalen, you alluded to. It's hard to vote against puppy regulations, but really, just let's not put borough taxpayers on the hook for an open-ended risk, so that various rescue shelters can. The main reason that they've been pushing this, and I assume you know this, Mr. Mayor, is because they want the fees, right? They want the fees from these puppies that they have. So they've gone to local municipalities and local councils and said, hey, what's that? No, but that's important for everybody to understand what that is. And these are wonderful organizations, but remember something, they want the fees from the pet stores so that they can go and increase their budgets. That's the biggest issue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, you were on your way up.
Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Dubray. That's Dubreuil. I'm the owner of Shake-A-Paw in Greenbrook, New Jersey. So I'm not going to take too much of your time because a lot of my colleagues have already talked about a bunch of things, but I'd like to run the scenario by you. So if this ordinance passes as written, it's going to put Mr. Hager out of business, and it's going to send all his employees to the unemployment line. Let's say a year down the road, Bill's Fluffy Puppy Rescue decides to open up at Bark Avenue's old location. Now he's a rescue, he's a 501c3, he pays zero tax, and he offers zero consumer protection to his customers. So in other words, the minute the customer leaves his facility with their new adopted puppy, he's liable for absolutely nothing on medical reimbursement. We pet stores are liable for up to double the purchase price, and in the event that the pup comes down with something, this is the strongest consumer protection law in the nation as far as medical reimbursement on pets. Going back to this rescue, not only is there no consumer protection, there's no insight on where he gets his dogs from. He can fly them in from Korea, he can fly them in from Puerto Rico, he can get them at dog auctions, and he can get them from your so-called puppy mills. There's no limitations on where these rescues can get their dogs from. Now, are you sure you want to have Korean dogs walking the streets of Red Bank with God knows what disease they'll be bringing in with them? I know I would rather have Bark Avenue 10-week-old Shih Tzu who's up to date on vaccines, a known medical history, weekly vet checked, and most important, a known origin of where the pup is coming from a reputable breeder. Passing this law will shut down Bark Avenue, but it will not close a single puppy mill because the so-called rescues will keep buying from them without restrictions. I politely ask that you please reconsider this ordinance for further discussion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Burnham, you had your hand up before.
Good evening, Cindy Burnham, 71 Wallace Street. My concern is, or my question is not really related to the ordinance, but it's related to the fact that Councilman Whalen is dating and has been dating a woman that runs a pet store, right?
Sure.
Doesn't she run Bark Avenue? Isn't her dad run Bark Avenue?
My girlfriend's father is a roofing and siding company in Long Branch.
Oh, I thought, okay. My mistake. Last I heard, the last I heard, they were the owners of Bark Avenue, and all I was going to say was that if that was the fact,
It's not.
then I would expect you to recuse
I know what you're
yourself.
talking about. I used to date the owner of Buena Sera, which is an Italian restaurant.
No, it wasn't Bonacera. Wasn't it? Thank
Anybody else?
Yeah, does he look great at you? Yeah,
Everybody in the store cannot date Michael Whalen. Just one brief comment that I'd like to make in regards to a customer walking into the store, like the little girl before. The one thing that the store model offers the consumer that no other model does is the ability to talk to and visit with experienced personnel and puppies, and I would say primarily our puppies are hypoallergenic, whether it's a 7% of sold animals I can't speak to, but we get a lot of people that walk right up to the counter and go, my daughter's allergic, my son's allergic, what do you recommend, what can we do? And it's it's actually the most popular breeds that we sell, is hypoallergenic fluff balls. I mean, that's basically what they are. So one thing is that consideration. The second consideration is doing research online. There's many puppy websites out there. I happen to like Pet Guide. If anybody wants to look, it's a real great site. It talks about breeds and gives you a lot of information. It's really good. I recommend it. When somebody comes into the store, basically the opportunity to view different breeds, to interface, play, and meet with those breeds and those puppies, oftentimes is what makes the difference with a customer having a good experience with an animal and then a bad experience with just getting one from a breeder from Timbuktu or getting a rescue. Now they've interfaced, and many times people will come into the store, meet with a dog, meet with another dog, meet with another dog, come back again, do the exact same thing, then go into our play runs, interface with the dog on the ground, and most puppies, when you put them on a counter, are much different from when you put them on the ground. And now they walk out, the consumer now has a lot more data to go on. If somebody comes into my shop and says, do you sell pit bulls? My answer is, please go to a rescue. If somebody asks for a Labrador Retriever, normally I'll say, there are also lots in rescues or other adoption agencies. But when it comes to somebody saying to me, I'd like a Chiweenie or I'd like a teddy bear, which is a Shih Tzu Bichon mix, this is where they have to go. I mean, it really makes the most sense to just require the consumer to only have the option of go on the website, pick a dog that obviously may not even be in a reasonable drive. It's something that you should also, as you guys discuss this back and forth, you should consider that option that's available to the consumer right now is the ability to come in and interface with many different animals to be able to make an intelligent choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hagan.
Gary, can I just ask you a quick question?
Right here.
Right here. Councilman Zipper. Oh, hi. You're not a licensed kennel, right?
A licensed
kennel?
No.
And you're not in the business of breeding dogs yourself?
We are not.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anybody else as we wrap it up? If not, thank you all for your comments. And again, this was educational, and I think it was important that we heard from all of the comments, because I think it's part of our exploratory duties to actually put some comments on the record so that we have not just your personal insights, but also you can share with us your knowledge, which is important, and I think the comments from attorneys that were here tonight is very appreciated by us. And we'll carry this to when, Pam, again? It's so long ago?
February 28th.
February 28th at 6:30, so you don't have to be back on Valentine's Day. But between now and then, we will be having discussions with stakeholders as well as the committee, and we'll review it. But thank you all for your comments. Thank you. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, by the way, but you don't have to. On the resolution,
No more. Yeah.
by consent, the council does not have any objections. I'd like to move by consent resolutions 1816, 17, 18, 19, and 22, which are
Mayor, can I do 20 also?
I'm sorry?
18 and 20 also.
16 and 19.
Yeah, that's what I left that out. No, I said 16, 17, 18, 19, and 22. Yeah. So any objections to that? Okay, so is there a motion to move by consent 16, 17, 18, 24? Go ahead, Steve.
Public questions, comments. On the ordinances?
No, there's no ordinance.
Resolution.
Yeah, please. Okay. On the ones that are by consent.
Mayor, do you mind if we wait 30 seconds just for the clear out?
What's that? The salary raises are right there.
No, I know, I saw them.
Okay, so this is just on the ones by consent. Which one did you have a question?
I have a question about two. One of them you mentioned, that's 1820. And then I have some questions about 1821.
Okay, so 21 we're going to discuss. And 20 we're going to discuss.
Well, I have some questions.
Oh, yeah, I know, but...
Is not the public...
No, we will, but now I just wanted you to know that we're going to discuss those anyhow. But certainly we'll entertain your comment right now.
Thank you. With respect to 1820, Stephen Heck, 135 branch. With respect to 1820...
There's an amendment on that, Steve, just so you know.
I don't know.
I caught that at the administrative meeting. Evidently, there was a number that was omitted from that was on the website. The contract amount was $32,500, which was the contract that was awarded last year. So
that was from October to October 16th to January 16th.
Well, part of it was spent last year. The other part has not been spent yet.
Well, but now there's another 3 months that you.
There's no change in the amount. It's the same contract amount.
Flat rate.
It's a flat rate.
Well, that's one of my questions.
Yeah.
Then. You answered one of my questions.
That number was omitted. So
it was omitted, yes. Yeah. So the reference to being more than 17.5 is the original contract.
Yes.
Okay, so the only thing that's changed about the original contract is the time, the length of time.
That is correct.
And my second question about that is why?
There's more study and there's more review. We don't even have the final report yet.
Okay. Thank you. Would it be in order to ask about 1821?
Go ahead.
Okay. The question has to do with number 2, attached proposal, etc., etc., provide professional management services for administrative and financial operations. My understanding is, of course, that we are without an administrator, but I was confused about the financial part of that job description, if you will, for the interim administrators. My understanding is that our financial professionals stay with us. And so what's the reference to financial operations?
Do you want to address it or jump in?
There's no change in the current operations other than this contract provides, as would be with any business administrator, just oversight of the finance department and financial operations.
Thank you. And my last question.
Have to be certified by the CFO.
Okay, so that process is not.
Certification has to come from the CFO.
And my last question is, now that Stanley is gone, who's going to help us to work the microphone?
I'm sorry. Now that Stanley's gone, we're probably going to get new microphones as we're announcing.
Well, there you go.
We'll be posting for the jobs.
Councilman Taylor is going to spec out the microphones. All right. Any other questions or discussions on any resolutions, even on the ones that were listed for consent? If not, motion to approve resolutions 16, 17, 18, 19, and 22. So second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Now we get to resolution 18-20, the resolution extending the professional services contract under NJSA 44A 20-4. Mark, you had a question on that?
Just, I think everybody knows my position on this from the meeting prior to reorg. No offense, Joe, nothing personal. No offense to Cliff, and certainly no offense to Ken. I just simply think this is a ridiculous way to proceed. For the borough, we have an administrator. We are just continuing down a path that is inherently flawed, just indicative of a backdoor deal, no communication. I need to continue to sound the alarm on this. And I just wanted to put that out there, that this is just a continuation of a flawed matter.
The announcement with respect to the advertisement that was prepared by the Government Strategy Group, I believe has already gone out with a return date no later than February 9th. And hopefully by a number of different advertisements in the proper places this time we'll be able to get maybe the type of candidates that we would like to see in terms of submit proposals. So we are moving forward, and I have to add that in the meantime,
we're moving forward on a completely separate track. We did the same thing in June, and unbeknownst to myself, to Michael, to Linda, at the time, none of us knew that there was an alternate path, and there was no communication about it. I believe I was abundantly clear about that at the December 27th meeting. I just continue to, again, sound the alarm how ridiculous this process has been. It's an absolute disgrace, a shame that Reading residents aren't more offended by this. Personally, this is something that just screams incompetence to me.
well, as far as I know, every department is working professionally, adequately, and without default in any condition. The Department of Public Works, which is one of our largest departments, during the storm, performed adequately and stellarly in a great function. Every single department had reports on a regular basis, every single day, to either Joe or Ken, and they keep the various departments connected to each other, and the day-to-day coordinator of a lot of those activities happens to be our Director of Public Works, who was also a certified borough administrator.
Mayor, my point is it's a relevant job that is being done by government services. Government strategy, excuse me. The process is flawed. The process is broken, and there's been no communication about it. It was simply a backdoor deal that was shoved through. People fell off the map. They decided not to interview people. How can you comment on somebody being unqualified if you didn't even interview? I mean, that's just absurd. To say that somebody, we didn't have the right candidates. Well, how do you know? You didn't even sit in the room with them.
I did see,
I
personally
That is entirely true.
And
We've
I
gone through
interviewed
this already.
I'm just
Councilman
reading my
Taylor.
objection.
Well, great. And I can tell you that Kendra Roberts met with all council twice. And we talked about having an interim management consultant. We talked about it. You agreed to it.
A consultant, yes.
Okay,
With a
well, let
plan
me
in place
finish.
to hire
Let
an
me
administrator
finish.
by
Let me
December
finish.
1st.
one at a time. Go ahead, Ken.
Well, he likes to talk over me. And I resent that. I'm the only woman on this council. Show a little respect.
We are all peers.
Okay, let her finish, please.
No, but to say that it's a backdoor thing, that is untrue. I think
Did
it's
anybody in
sour
the public
grapes.
know
I
about
think
this?
it's
Let her
sour
finish.
grapes. I did interview 4 or 5 of the candidates. How many were on the list? 8?
The fact that you don't even know that, and you're on the finance committee, is disgraceful.
Is it?
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
So are we going to continue this conversation forever?
You want me to just pat you on the back and say you did a great job now?
No,
I'm
no,
not
let's not
saying
make
that
this
at all.
personal.
This is
But I
not
don't
personal,
think-
Mayor. This is about the business of the borough.
Well, no, you
This
just
is
said it
not
personal by essentially making statements about her participation.
She's a committee member. She has an obligation to the borough.
And she did perform her ability.
I did.
Barely.
I wouldn't characterize
No, but you will not accept that I had business commitments. No, I had a board meeting. No, but that is something I have to do. That pays my mortgage. You should understand that.
I do
No,
understand
no,
that.
there are times when I am on deadline and I have to work late. So please, you're just saying something you don't know. Would you like the CEO of Amcor to come in here to talk to you about it? That's ridiculous.
This discussion has already been held on the 27th. I don't think it should be repeated again, so.
I agree.
We have a resolution.
Continue my objection to this process.
Right. And your objection is noted. We have a resolution You had some questions on it, I think they were answered, you can still vote no.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say something.
Sure.
Because, yes, your objection is noted, but it's also about how the borough is running. And right now, the borough is running great. I mean, Ken and Joe are doing a great job. I feel more informed in this past 2 weeks than I did all of last year. So with this snowstorm, they did a phenomenal job keeping all of us informed. I think that they're doing a great job, and it's a great way of us finding and narrowing down the perfect candidate for this job. So this is...
And there was a plan in place to do that starting in October when we hired these people.
Yes, and we...
You agreed to hire them at that point in time, Mark. You agreed to, yes.
Yes, you did. You agreed to hire them as a consultant.
I know, but I voted for it.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion and a second.
No.
I'm sorry. All right, resolution 18-20, is there a motion? Second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Yangstrom?
Yes.
Councilman Zipperich?
Yes.
Councilwoman Morgan? Yes. Councilman Ballard?
Yes.
Councilman Taylor?
No.
Councilman Whalen?
No.
Okay, resolution's adopted. Resolution 1821, a resolution repealing and replacing resolution 1815, approving a contract for the administrative services and appointing interim administrator. Motion? Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Same issue.
Any? I'm sorry, roll call, yeah.
Councilman Yangstrom?
Yes.
Councilman Zipperich?
Yes.
Councilwoman Morgan? Yes. Councilman Ballard?
Yes.
Councilman Taylor?
No.
Councilman Whalen?
No.
The resolution passes. There are no proclamations. The other proclamation is off. The payment of vouchers, resolution 1723. Be it resolved that the bill to be paid on the tax check registry amounting to $1,387.13. Motion. So moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Any new business? Anybody? Any new business?
Mayor, just a little old business. I know Rich Hardy's here from the Department of Public Utilities. I wanted to commend him and Cliff on the outstanding job that they did during the blizzard. I mean, the whole team works tirelessly that week through the following day. They welded some plow blades back together and just kept the borough safe and cozy for that period of snowfall. I also wanted to thank Jim and the whole team at River Center for all of the holiday success that they brought to the business community here. Well done.
Okay. Anybody else under old business? New business?
I just one quick thing to say, Mayor. I promise to be brief. It's just something I think that we can work on maybe going forward a little bit. Is a little bit more maybe consistency. Tonight, my issue wasn't about the puppy ordinance. I mean, the puppy mills. Again, I'm wholeheartedly against it. But it's the fact that we didn't hear public comment, and then we voted on it without any of the information. And I only bring that up is because for the last 2 years as the chair of the parking committee with Councilman Yingstrom and Councilman Zipperich was we couldn't vote on a garage, as Eric mentioned in his committee report, until we have a study, until we have all the information. Councilman Zipperich has said that multiple times over the course of the last year or two. I cannot and I will not vote on it until I have the information. So if you can't vote on a parking garage or any type of parking advancement for Red Bank because you don't have the information in front of you, how easily you can vote on something tonight with having less than zero information. As Eric said, none of us are puppy experts. So as long as we can maybe just stay a little more consistent, don't vote for something you have no idea about without any information, but then say, well, I'll do it here, but won't do here. I just think we shouldn't pick and choose how and when we vote. If you want the information before you vote, we should have that always, instead of when we'd like to. And that's all I'd just like to say. Thank you.
That would have been helpful with 55 West Front Street also. It was presented for introduction, we voted on it, but we were not provided with any information beforehand. So it goes both ways.
And I don't know how many times I can say that the information was provided by in every executive session meeting was called by the mayor. I mean, there wasn't any time that nobody wasn't informed.
When it was first introduced, it was on the agenda, we had no background information. It had not been discussed beforehand. That is what I'm objecting to. And if you're saying that this is what's happening now, I think we have spoken.
It is happening.
Everybody did explain, they came up, they gave their comments, their pros and cons, and we are going to tweak this. We'll take care of it, we'll see what we can do, we'll work together, but please don't say that we didn't have, that we should have tabled it because we went ahead and we introduced it, just as you did with 55 West Front Street and the White Street parking lot.
I mean, again, to bring up the White Street parking lot is ridiculous, given the fact that every single parking committee meeting was attended by 2 Democrats and 1 Republican. Every single one of them. There's not a single parking committee meeting that the majority of that meeting wasn't on the other side of the aisle. Every single legal matter, once the lawsuit happened, every matter that was in executive session was called for by the mayor. And the entire governing body.
Those executive
No,
sessions.
Mayor, that's my point, is that everybody was there. This notion that people are left in the door is just ridiculous, and it's an easy scapegoat. I wasn't trying to pick an argument, Kathy. All I'm saying is that let's just be consistent and move forward. I was just trying to make that a point. I wasn't attacking. I just set up the broad stroke.
Let's move forward.
Okay, thank you. Bonnie,
No, one last comment, Mayor. There's a great deal of information to assemble on this puppy ordinance. I agree with you, Michael. The good thing is that we didn't put it out for 2 weeks. We pushed it out till the end of February. The amount of information that we have to learn from, the amount of data that we have to collect before we make a decision on the next public hearing of that ordinance, I think is going to come together nicely. Everybody is very concerned about all of the information that we heard here tonight that was presented. And we think that we have a full month and a half to get it right before we take a final vote on that. And then to Kathy's point of providing information, you guys were present in executive session when we discussed government strategies as well.
Yes, and we agreed to a consulting role.
they're still consulting.
Yeah, now they're running the borough.
They are consulting and assisting in the running of the borough, and as a result of that, we're saving money. Mr. DeSoto.
So about this process of hiring an administrator, Mr. Taylor made a pretty strong assertion that it smells like a backroom deal. Can I ask you, what will the process be going forward? Who's running point on it, first of all?
Well, first of all, the resumes are going to go out. They're going to come back to Mr. Arthur and myself, and we're going to exchange all the information and all the resumes. We're going to give it to everybody when they come in. And frankly, I think that if it's possible, we're going to do an interview process that is going to be completely thorough. I don't know, do we have all the committee and council involved in that? Yeah. If it's an executive session, the whole council will be involved in the interviews of the...
Wait, I'm sorry, you said if?
I'm sorry?
You said if it's an executive session?
It will have to be.
Oh, it will be, okay,
Because
sorry.
and that's the difference in the process that happened before, or did happen.
And again, the assertion that there's a backroom deal.
There is no backroom deal.
No.
I'm
I'm simply referring to the assertion. That's all. However, just in the so that we do have a transparent process here, will any council members or the mayor or even I'm sorry, I didn't get your anybody. Will there be any sort of process to ensure that everybody discloses any potential conflicts of interest as a resume comes in? For example, I know John Smith, and John Smith, maybe I've seen him at political fundraisers or something, maybe I've seen him out and about. Is there a requirement to disclose? And if not, maybe is there a way to introduce any sort of ordinance that can provide a process during this very important time where we're essentially moving off of 30 years of the same person? Can we institute a process that every member of the council and governing body and outside consultants need to adhere to as far as disclosing conflicts of interest?
That's by state law.
The local government ethics law that closes yet, so you can't, it's illegal for any council member to vote on something that affects the interests of some blood relative, someone they have a business relationship with, or members of their immediate family or household.
How about like a political How about like a political colleague?
Uh,
But yeah, in other words, what I'm saying is, let's really be transparent.
Legislature, surprisingly,
Sure,
and
yeah.
neither side has seen fit to deem political context as a conflict as a matter of law.
And you disagree with that, sounds like.
Well, being cynical, it's a legislature.
Sure.
They also accept a lot of different things with themselves.
Sure, and I'm a little cynical. So why don't we lead by example here and actually institute a strong conflict of interest type of disclosure for everybody on this governing body? Why don't we introduce that, right? And then it's in the interest of, this way everybody in the public can feel confident that we're hiring the best person. And for somebody who's going to have the kind of power that Stanley Sickles had, we want to make sure that that person is not just someone's political buddy, a donor, or something like that. We just want to make sure, that's all.
You're absolutely right, Sean.
Thank you. So will you introduce an ordinance to that effect?
Introduce an ordinance.
Well,
The ordinance, you could just make a requirement.
You'll do it?
Introduce it the same night.
Perfect. And disclose any relationship. And then my second point, on the salary increases. What?
That was tabled. Salary.
Oh, you did, sorry. And, well, are you planning on bringing it back up? Sorry, I wasn't
There
here.
has to be some revisions to it.
Oh, and who's the head of the finance committee now? Oh,
Mr. Ballard.
Mr. Ballard, can you tell me, based on, given the fact the 2% property tax cap has expired, what our likely risk is based on previous, kind of the years before we had the cap in place? Can you tell us what we're really at risk for as a borough? How high could salaries go on contracts? And then in addition, how much are we going to increase, how much are you planning on increasing salaries for, borough hall press?
Well, first of all, those negotiations haven't taken place, that's number one. And number two, I don't think it's a fair question for Councilman Ballard. He only started this week.
Okay, all right, sorry. Who else on the finance committee?
John the 23rd.
Who else on the finance committee?
John the 23rd said when he was chosen Pope, he was a fat, rotund man, big smile, a wonderful man. He came out on the balcony and all the newspapers and the politicians were trying to corner him and make a fool out of him. So this guy was an outsider from the Vatican. He came out after just having put on his Pope hat. And so the newspapers, the journalist said to him, Holy Father, they wanted to drink it. How many people work at the Vatican? He had no clue. He said, only about a quarter of them. So that he won everybody's heart. Michael just started.
Fair point. Who else on the finance committee? Yeah.
It would be Councilman Taylor, and I believe Councilman Zippert.
Okay, all right, so Councilman Taylor or Councilman Zippridge. Actually, primarily Councilman Zippridge, because you do run DPW, which is a big area of, we have a lot of employees there. What do you think our open-end risk is, given the fact that the property tax cap has expired on both contracts and based on past history when you were here, I believe, and then also what percentage raises are we planning on giving Borough Hall brass?
There's been no. You can't, no one on the council can answer questions on what they expect or think contract negotiations will result in. To the extent you can answer general budget questions, that's fine, but you can't answer what you think the next contract should be for anyone.
No, well, that wasn't the question. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sure,
I get it, totally get it, right. But the question is, what is the risk?
Referring to the ordinance
Yeah.
that was tabled, is
Right.
not on for discussion because it has to be worked on. That ordinance does not make reference to a certain salary per a certain individual. It is a range from, XYZ to ABC, and it is not specific to the employee or the position, but it's a range of the position.
Well, no, it's definitely specific to positions, and so to
But
that.
it's a range, it's not.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
But in some instances, so then why did we come here tonight? And again, things change. Why did we come here tonight with the intent to raise the high end if you're not intending on raising the salary? If you're not going to raise the salary, why raise the range?
I'll tell you why it was provided in previous issues that the borough has had. Because if we put out an advertising, hypothetically, not that we need it, for a CFO, the salary for the CFO under the old ordinance was a set amount of money.
Right.
That person who might be interested to say, I'm not even going to go for an interview at that particular certain amount of money because I have experience of 20 years versus experience of 5 years. And so therefore, we invariably did one of two things. We did not accept certain candidates because they weren't interested, and we had to settle for different people in different positions. Secondly, what we did, as soon as somebody was hired, that person essentially went to another county.
Okay, well, I'm more referring to the existing employees, like, and not picking on anybody individually, really. But like, for example, Eugenia's position, that raises what her existing salary, and I'm not picking on you, I promise. That raises, I think now her salary is what, $99,534, and that raises the ceiling from 100 to 110.
No,
So
it doesn't raise her salary.
no, it raises the ceiling.
range.
Right, the ceiling, which means, right now we have a CFO, you know, we may need one at another point, but why raise the range if we're not, unless we're planning on significantly raising the salary for existing employees?
Because we would have to change that salary under the old system, the salary ordinance, every single year or 2 years, because most of those contracts were based upon either percentage increases or cost of living increases.
Got it, okay, so now, fair enough.
And we actually discussed that for over 6 months or so. Mr. Cocu?
Yes, sir. Good evening again. Now official.
It's almost morning.
Yeah. This is official. Yeah. The Red Bank NAACP lost its secretary yesterday. She passed away in
Oh,
her
sorry to
sleep.
hear that.
Yeah, Mary Lee Gilmore. So it's most likely they're probably going to be asking me to take on the acting secretary position. And
You
the
have good
president.
penmanship.
What was that?
You have good penmanship.
Thank you. The president asked me to come by and inform you that we sent some message to the mayor and council a little while ago. That was also in the newspaper, but there has been no response, an official response. And at our last NAACP meeting, the same issues that were in what had been distributed to council were discussed. Ms. Burnham was at the meeting, and she said when she was on the council, she did not receive it. If you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Yeah, she did not receive it. You know, so the president is asking, do you still have a copy of that? And could you address it and perhaps come up with some kind of a position that the NAACP can review, and also kind of act in concert with the town as we move forward with reorganization, choosing of new people. Maybe we can also have input in some of the things that we expect to see in the new administrator and other positions. So that's the message that I bring from the...
Okay, I'm familiar with the original letter, and I was under the impression that the administrator had already communicated with the president on that, on some issues, but I'll speak to the borough attorney. I know the council in the past had generally been aware of some of those issues, but there are one or two issues that we can't talk about in public, but I'm familiar with the letter, and I'll make sure that it's replied to. Okay, thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Make it short, listen, man. P.O. Box 287.
I mean, Happy New Year, Fred.
Happy New Year to all y'all. I wanted to speak with you and Cliff, but it's getting late, so I'll do it at the next council meeting inside the thing there. One of the issues I have, I praise the police officer. They've done a wonderful job for the snowstorm and the street department, but we have a problem. You came around and gave slips out, moved the vehicles off the highway between Shrewsbury and Layton Avenue on Bank Street. Was no vehicles on the street, Zippers. No vehicles. They was all moved because I applied two driveways on Bank Street. You can't get one vehicle down the street because snow is away from the curb, out, and cars are parking, and you can't get one vehicle down the street. Last night, I couldn't even get my truck. I had to turn around because I got a plow in it. a pickup. Because there's two big vehicles parked like this, I couldn't get through. How can a fire truck get down that street? So let me finish.
Fred, I actually think that it would be best if you asked these questions of the director and possibly the police chief, because I don't run the operation.
No, the snow removal. I understand your praise and Eric. They've done a wonderful job. Dr. Parker Boulevard, you can't get for one vehicle down the street now because those cars are parked along the side of the snowbank and the traffic is one way right now. Why the borough vehicles cannot cut back that snow along the curb so that people can park there? It's, you ride around, you didn't see that. We got catch bases. I see a lot of the farmers, some of the farmers, cleaning the catch bases. Then you see some farmers riding around with one Christmas tree on the truck. I mentioned it to Cliff, and you know something? It's the same thing going over and over every year we come up here when there's a snowstorm. And the other thing, Mr. Miller, I brought it up to your attention, and I brought it up before. Some of these people supplying the snow, going down the street too fast. Too fast. There's too many peoples out here, they're going down the street too fast in these trucks. I was on Mama Street, applying a lot, next to McKenna's office, lawyer. You had a man in a $50,000 vehicle, never applied snow. I'm looking at him, he never applied snow. He was in that vehicle all by himself, and another borough vehicle was behind him. And the man couldn't really apply snow. What we was taught, you get a driver who knows how to apply snow, he gets in that truck with that driver, and he goes up and down the street. That man teaches him. You don't put a man in a $50,000 vehicle who never applied snow before. It's one of the new guys. I've seen it. And this man shouldn't even be behind the wheel of that truck. But I understand, you're in charge of public works. You said it earlier, y'all have meetings. So if you have meetings, you know what goes on in public works, right? Am I right or wrong? I just got, you should know, right? Now, you're aware of it, but I don't want to get off the subject because,
Freddie,
let me finish.
Freddie, do you know what the gentleman's qualifications were to drive that vehicle?
Do I know
what qualifications he possessed?
To drive that vehicle?
To drive that vehicle?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, then how can you make that judgment?
Because how can a man get behind a $50,000 truck and he don't know how to apply snow? Okay, even if he got, wait a minute.
How do you know that? How do you know that? Did you know whether he was trained?
Zippers.
Mr. Boynton, Mr. Boynton, do you know whether he was trained?
For number one, I know how to apply snow. And I'm not going to get off.
Works for a long time before you left the borough.
Okay, but let me tell you something. You can look at a man driving a truck and tell if you know how, when you go behind a car, okay, and you push all that snow behind that car, and then you...
Understood, Mr. Boynton.
I'm not going...
And I, at the beginning of this conversation,